what's your frustration here, or your message or your perspective here when it comes to the worldwide community, the West, chipping in into the Middle East, not really understanding the themes that you just mentioned, the social themes that happen really and that emerge there in the Middle East?
So, well, there are 2 points here. Number one, how the West looks at this, and number two, peace is peace. So, number West, and as someone, as a U.S. citizen who grew up overseas and with an Arab background, let me just tell you that Arab American and Arab are two different things, and two different ideas, and they have two different perspectives and outlook on life and everything. And because I came here when I was in my late 20s, I don't consider myself to be Arab American, even though I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm also Arab, but I'm not Arab American, because Arab American defines a specific idea of Arabs whose outlook on life was made, it was shaped along the ideas of America, and that's not the Middle East. So Arab Americans say, okay, we want liberty in Palestine. We want LGBTQ rights in Palestine. None of this will happen if you ever get Palestine. The Arabs have a different outlook on things and different understanding of things. So these are, both of them are pushing in the same direction, as in both of them dislike Israel. But it doesn't mean that both of them have a similar idea of what happens next or what should happen. So Arab Americans, their idea or their whatever fight that they're fighting, that the one that you see on U.S. college campuses, this is not part of the Arab debate or Middle East politics. This is part of American politics. It is part of the identity politics war that we have here in the United States, wherein you have white versus non-white, or people of color versus the other people. Name it whatever you want to name it. It's only in this context that you see these Arab Americans operating and behaving, and this makes someone like Ilhan Omar, who's not Arab and who's the member of Congress who's a hijabi, who wouldn't pass the test of any hijabi woman in the Middle East. If you're hijabi, you can't really be this public, or be dating your campaign manager, or be going on GQ magazine cover, or all the kinds of opinions, or support legislation of marijuana. This would be crazy if you see a hijabi woman in the Arab world, a Muslim woman, saying, "Oh, hey, by the way, let's smoke weed." I think this is this is anathema. This is against Islam. This is unheard of. So the Arabs and Muslims that you see in the U.S. and in the West are totally different breed and population than the ones that where I grew up, the ones that I consider myself to be. And I try to make the point, all the time, but it's, they're mutually benefiting from one another. So the Arab Americans are using whatever the Middle East has to say, listen, we're victims, therefore we're people of color, therefore we have rights just like all the people of color against the white people. So this is the way that Arab Americans use the Middle East. Now, the Middle East is happy because, they see these people who are shouting the shouts that they want to see them shout. So, for example, you get Hassan Nasrallah, the chief of Hezbollah, the terrorist party in Lebanon, the pro-Iran party, militia in Lebanon. And you get their chief, and he goes on national TV and says, we thank all these U.S. college campuses. Look at how American politics is changing thanks to all the struggle that these kids are putting on college campuses. So while there is mutual symbiosis between the two sides, the Arabs and the Muslims over there and the Arab and American Muslims over here, they're not one and the same. They just shout similar slogans, but they're not one and the same. And if you send any of these college campus kids to the Middle East, the other day I was watching 2 students from Columbia University demanding that, they get food or support. During the days when, there were clashes on campus. Mm-hmm. And the lady was speaking, and behind her stood a gentleman with a Palestinian kufiya on his shoulders, and he was dressed in a crop top. And I thought this guy wouldn't last 10 minutes in Ramallah. I mean, what does he think if there's ever Palestine it'll look like? I mean, or Beirut. I'm not picking on Ramallah here. I'm just saying, or Beirut or Damascus or any other place. So I don't think that these kids understand what they're talking about. And if you talk to them, if you see all these TV interviews, just ask them what's river and what's sea. And I doubt that they'll give you the names Jordan and Mediterranean. So, but I mean, I understand. I was once a kid, I went to the American University of Beirut. I was like them. I had a kufiya. I took to the street. I was shouting for Palestine. And then I grew up. And that's my, my thinking. I think all these polling results that you see indicating that the people between 18 and 24 think this way and this is bad for the future. I disagree. I don't think this is bad for the future. I think these kids will grow up and mature and their opinions will change.
I hope so too, because, I'm part of Gen Z, and sometimes I'm proud of being part of Gen Z, and sometimes I'm like, yes, I don't know if I'm that proud to be part of Gen Z, because it's funny that you mentioned, all of these communities, minority communities, LGBTQ+, all of those arguing for in favor of Palestine, which the idea in itself is important, self-determination, and we're not arguing against that. But I'm wondering if maybe they get a paid trip to Gaza right now, like you say, dressed the way they're dressed, how would they react to what they're seeing, how they're received? And so here's the disconnect, because all of what we're seeing from the Middle East is mediated by social media, by what our friends are posting. We're not really there in that sense, and we can't. I don't wish anyone is in a war zone.